Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our next round of session spotlights for Convergence 2026. This is an opportunity for you to get to know our upcoming leaders, their sessions, and give you a better idea of what you would like to sign up for during Convergence 2026. Today, we are going to be hearing from Marilyn Romatka, Susan Lazear, Don Ahlert, Deborah Held, and Kristin Crane. Registration is open. We have one more week of priority registration, which means we are just 1 week away from general registration opening on November 10th. So if you are interested in signing up for classes, tours, or events early, please head online or give us a call and we would be happy to help. As a reminder, Convergence 2026 will be taking place in New Orleans, Louisiana from August 12th through the 16th. You can find a digital copy of the registration booklet online, where there'll be all kinds of information about the different sessions and events taking place, including the marketplace, exhibitions, the fashion show, keynote speaker, tours, and more. We will be hosting over 100 sessions, ranging from 90-minute seminars to 3-day workshops. As we learn more about a few of these workshops today, please put any questions that you have in the Q&A section. This is a great opportunity to hear directly from the instructors. First up for today, we're welcoming Marilyn Romatka, who's going to be talking about the Magic with Ribbon Dragon Boat Decorations class.
Thank you, Erica, and welcome everybody. To those of you who have seen me in other conferences, hi again. And to those of you who have not, let me introduce myself. My name is Marilyn Romatka, and my specialty is teaching living folk art crafts from somewhere in the world. I teach a variety of techniques. I teach weaving techniques and painting techniques, ethnic beading, and the common thread of all these techniques is that they are deep-rooted in a culture somewhere around the world. You could say that what I teach, these techniques have all survived the test of time. I like to say that I have the best job in the world. I travel to various countries in the world and collect folk art techniques, then bring them back home and teach enthusiastic students. So I started out teaching decades ago, starting out teaching to middle and high schoolers. I still do that today. And these kids taught me how to teach. So my teaching technique is engaging and enthusiastic and fun. It's a very low stress situation in my classes. Today, I will be talking to you about the Dragon Boat class. So let me hit share. And of course, the instructions are covering up my controls. So we're talking about the Magic with Ribbon Dragon Boat Decorations class, which is going to be taught on Saturday, August 15th in the morning. Good thing that it's in the morning because it's an easy class and it'll ease you into your day and the more challenging weave structure classes that you've signed up for in the afternoon. So what is a dragon boat? This is a dragon boat. These decorations are beautiful little geometric gems that are wound on a base with a special technique. The name of them comes from their original use. This comes from China. And in China, they hold their traditional dragon boat races on the 5th day of the 5th month of the lunar calendar. Now, it's hot and muggy on this day, and there are a lot of people there to see the races, and there are a lot of biting insects. So these decorations were developed and are made and filled with herbs that repel mosquitoes. So they're actually originally sachets. You can make the ones that you make at Convergence and use them as a sachet. I will have lavender with me if you want, or you can just use them as a decoration. So the delight in these things is not just in the making of them, although that's pretty cool, but also in how they reflect the light when they move. We will come up with lots of variations of the winding technique, starting with the absolute simplest, which is, of course, one color, and then moving on from there. We're going to be using ribbon in the class, which is the easiest to use, but these decorations can also be made with yarn or string or spun silk. Does anybody out there in the audience have any extra string in their house? Just asking, just asking. So these are some snapshots from actual classes. So this one is only half done. But you can see the success that the students are having with their very first go at this skill. Success and instant gratification, even for the rank beginner. These are great craft projects for afternoons with kids. I've taught as young as 5th graders how to do this, and they make great teachers' gifts or stock for your holiday bazaar, grandparents' gifts. They hang in the kitchen window or on the Christmas tree or underneath of lamps for that special touch of ethnic delight. There will be a class kit for this class because I bring everything you need. I do ask you to bring some sharp sewing snips so that we don't need to share scissors, but I'll bring everything you need, including an 8-page full color handout that you'll be able to reference 3 years from now when you say, I want to make some more of those. And how did it go? It's all there for you in pictures. And I'll be bringing the custom die cut winding bases that we'll be using to wind the strands on. All the ribbon, of course, for the sachets that we'll be making, pins to go at the corners, tassels, glue and tape, and lavender, which you can include if you want, although you don't need to. I've been teaching this skill, as I say, to young kids for many, many years. I can teach you too. And this is also not just a dandy class for you, but also any friends that you might bring with you to Convergence that are possibly not yet dyed in the wool weavers. If they need a nice simple class, because they're not going to sign up for turned tackete on 12 shafts. This is a standalone class that'll send the students home with the skills that they need to make many, many of these charming decorations into the future. And I hope to see you in New Orleans.
Thank you so much for sharing more about this. I think anybody coming to Convergence would probably have extra string and yarn lying around. I would be very surprised if they don't. On that note, I know you said during this class you're going to be teaching using the ribbon because it is like an easier material to work with, but if folks want to bring other materials, are they welcome to bring stuff along with them, or is the focus just going to be on ribbon for this?
They're welcome to bring other things. I encourage creativity in my classes. I will tell you though that you have string at home and you can make these at home. If you're going to be winding these things with ribbon, you can be done with one once you have the technique down in 17 minutes. If you're going to do it with like yarn, it's going to take you an hour. So don't waste the time in my class winding your beautiful string that you have planned for a dragon boat in the future. Use my materials, get the skills, and then you can go home and you can watch some lovely movie while you're winding with the more difficult materials.
Wonderful. And if this is maybe going a step beyond that beginner too a little bit, but my brain is working. So you were talking about how there's different patterns and you can incorporate different colors and such. Could people incorporate ribbon and yarn in the same one, or does the material have to be the same across the whole boat?
It can be, I mean, the world is open to you as a creative person. You can do it with ribbon, you can do it with yarn, you can do it with yarn and ribbon, you can do it with metallics. Everything is open to you. You can strand 2 at the same time. You can strand 3 at the same time. There's all kinds of things you can do with this technique.
Well, I am excited to see what you get people making in this seminar. It's going to be lovely and full of color. Again, that was Marilyn Romatka talking about the Magic with Ribbons Dragon Boat Decoration Seminar, which is a 3-hour hands-on seminar taking place Saturday morning, August 16th. Up next, we've got Susan Lazear, who's going to be talking about how body measurements impact your clothing patterns.
Look there. Hi, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with PowerPoint, and so we're right here. So I'll just begin and start going through this. A little bit about me. I've spent almost all of my professional career as a college professor, teaching in fashion, and a lot of that had to do with pattern making and clothing construction, etc. So measuring was very much a part of what I did with hundreds of students over the years. And the other item about me that's pertinent to this class is that I also own Crochet Design Studio, and I have designed pattern making software. So there's a whole skill set that gets pulled upon in order to instruct a programmer how to draft patterns. And the measurements are very much part of it. So that's who I am coming into this class. So these are some of the things that we're going to cover in the class, but I'm going to go through each of these in, one by one. So we'll just carry on. We'll talk about measuring tools that can make it easier for you, and these are just a few. And then also how to use some of them. And sometimes it's just the technique. You can use a standard tool you have, but there's a way of using it that ensures better success. So tools will be one thing. How to prep to be measured is also important to prevent you from making the most common mistakes of not remembering where, for example, your end of shoulder point was. You measured for the shoulder seam length, but now you're going to measure the arm length. Where did you stop and start? So there's more things like that, and finding the center of your body, etc. Now, this is only an hour and a half lecture, so just take good notes, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. So then I will go through the taking of body measurements and sort of covering them in areas of the body. So like the neck and shoulder area, and then the bust, waist, hip area, etc. I do take some measurements different than a lot of the books would tell you, and that's just based on my experience of working with students drafting patterns over the years. I know what the most commonly challenging measurements were, and some of them I don't understand why we were instructed to take them that way to begin with, because they're more tailoring for men than for women who have bosoms, etc. But we will walk through, and I'll show you some that I choose to do differently because they have given us better success. In all of this, you need to step back and identify, what your figure challenges are, and which measurements probably play into that. I'm sure those who have those challenges will know which body measurements are the challenge for them. This is, like I said, a 90-minute class, so I'm not going to be able to solve all your fitting challenges, a rounded shoulder and things like that in that short time. But certainly having a good set of knowing how to get a good set of measurements is a big start to, through that type of thing. So we also will talk about the anatomy of a pattern and, what parts of a pattern are called, etc. And then we will also talk about what parts of patterns have relationships with other parts of patterns. So that if you make a change in one spot, what is the ricochet effect that happens to other pattern pieces? So that's part of this too. And then the importance of understanding ease. So knowing your body measurements is one big part, but knowing how you like to wear your clothing is also very important. And that comes down to your fit style, your personal preferences, and how much ease is involved in that particular fit style. So the ease will set the difference between your body and the pattern. And so if you're working with a commercial sewing pattern that's been designed for lots of ease, but you're a person who prefers a more tailored look, well, you've already got a challenge there that you'll have to deal with. But if you know your measurements and you know how much ease you like in your clothing, and we'll talk about how you get to know that, then you can evaluate a commercial pattern, before you ever cut the fabric, to know if this is going to be, what you would most likely wear. So a little knowledge goes a long way, but understanding how you like to wear your clothes is a big factor that often gets overlooked. So we will spend some time talking about the impact that a measurement will have on a pattern, if it's taken right, but more importantly, if it's taken wrong. So if you take your bust front and back measurements incorrectly, and then, how will that play out in the pattern? As an example, if you measured your bust too big, then you're going to have probably a deeper armhole. You're going to have a greater armhole perimeter. You're going to have a sleeve that's probably bigger. So there's all these factors that play into that. So that will be covered. And then lastly, if part of the goal of this, other than getting the knowledge to take a good set of measurements, is how to evaluate a pattern prior to cutting. So if you know your measurements and your fit challenges, and you can understand how much ease you like in your clothing, and I will also state, because I didn't before, that that's also fabric driven. Depending on how drapey your fabric is, that plays into it too. But anyhow, if you are starting to gain an understanding of how an incorrect measurement can impact your pattern, and then understand the changes that you need to make on a pattern, this will all play into having a pattern that will get you to where you want to go with the garment much more quickly, and possibly without a muslin. So what you need to bring in class, nothing actually other than pencil and paper. I'll have a handout, which I hope to send in advance so that you arrive with it. There's no materials for you. There's no prerequisite. This is pretty basic information, some of which, people who've sewn for years haven't necessarily put some of these factors together. And I've only gained them from having worked with so many students over the years. So what should you leave with? A better understanding of how to prep and take body measurements, a knowledge of where certain body measurements impact your pattern, a knowledge of how a change to the pattern in one area may require subsequent changes on other pattern pieces, and a better understanding of how to evaluate a sewing pattern and what steps might be necessary to help you get the result that you want. So that's basically it. Here's my contact. If you need to reach out to me or would like to reach out to me because you have a question about the class or anything else, you can reach me at susan@cochineal.com. And I think that's it. So I can stop sharing and see if there's any questions.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. This sounds like such a wonderful overview and lecture with like tips and tricks on how to really get started narrowing down. We do have a couple questions here. Coming in, we've got is this class all lecture or will there be some hands-on actual measuring of our bodies?
No, there's not time to measure individual bodies. That does take time, and normally we work in pairs. But there are some measurements I will demo because a slide is not enough. So I may, have someone stand up and show the correct way. But there is not time in 90 minutes to do everything I said. In the 3-hour class, yeah, we would have measured. But this is just a 90-minute overview. So you'll get a lot of valuable information in that time.
The lecture, and that's actually, you mentioned it, and I was going to point out too, like, if you could kind of talk about how this could complement your 3-hour class where you do kind of walk away with some measurements, right?
Well, this one, a 3-hour class is maybe dealing with 12 to 14 measurements. And this class gets a little more specific in the measuring. For example, how to measure your front bust versus your back bust. And we don't do that in the other class because our goal is to make simple patterns, fairly simple in shape. But this class in discussing the measurements are kind of leading to what could be more custom measurements and or potentially dealing with challenges people have in fit, particularly about having a front bust that's like 4 inches bigger than the back bust. That leads to a different kind of pattern. So
these two classes could really go well together in getting some of that more detailed knowledge, but maybe also if they're looking for that hands-on walking away with measurement.
Yeah, I mean, they'd walk away with in the 3-hour class, they'd walk away with a good basic set of the most commonly used measurements. But now if you want to get into having more fit involved with it, that's where this class kind of picks up and talks about the measurements that are necessary for that, because we're kind of dividing the body a little bit more. and establishing a bust point, you know, and things like that too.
Great, a little more tailored.
Correct.
Thank you so much for talking more about this class. Again, that was Susan Lazear talking about the How Body Measurements Impact Your Clothing Pattern class, which is a 90-minute seminar taking place Friday, August 14th. Up next, we've got Dawn Ahlert, who's talking about twining with a twist 2 and 3 color Taniko.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Erica. Am I sharing?
Yes, and you want to use that button at the bottom
Yep,
to go. Yep, there we
got
go.
it right here. Yay.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you so much. Boy, already I want to sign up for everything and I can't because I'm teaching. But first of all, I wanted to say that in addition to my background of experimenting and working with all these techniques, I also am a student of being a teacher. Um, when I first went back to school, I was 35 and it was art school. I started finishing my AA and then went through undergrad and grad school in art and painting and drawing. And at that time, I knew that I wanted to teach probably at the university or art school level. So I was very conscious of trying to learn not only the basics, but how to explain the basics in different ways, such as some people are hands-on learners, some people are written, some people are oral, that kind of thing. So throughout my years, I've been very sensitive to that. And also I've taught movement in the form of snowboarding to adults and children. And that is quite a challenge if you've ever even thought about doing it. So I think that that's the extra thing I bring to the table with teaching is that I've tried to figure out what is the best way that people can learn and presenting material in a bunch of different ways. So I just wanted to say that to begin with, and you'll see that a little bit more in my presentation. So in this class, it's a 2-day class. It's very hands-on and it's very intensive. Um, Everything is slow moving, so you have to be patient. And we're going to work very close with your fingers. I love to knit. I heard somebody say recently that they're a closet knitter, and that's me. So I appreciate that slowness. So if you take this class, you're going to know that you have to slow down. So here I talk about the background. That is the title page this is the title page to the booklet I hand out, and it's like a 40-page color booklet. To begin the class, I'll give like a 45-minute presentation on how I came to be inspired by weft twining. And this particular piece is one of the pieces that I'll talk about. And this is the border is Maori Taniko. And that's what the class is basically based on. The pattern is created with colored thread or colored yarns rather than the actual twist of the twining. So we'll go into that. The other thing that makes this very unique is that the warp is free hanging. There is no tension. The tension is with the weaver's hand. Okay, so we'll talk about that. And it's kind of like pat your stomach, rub your head, or rub your head, pat your stomach kind of thing. And it just takes some dexterity and it takes some practice to really get it down. So we'll talk about the history and how we're going to do it. Okay, I have the colored booklet along with a kit that I supply, and people will be able to choose which pattern they would like to make along with the colors. And I talk about how we're going to accomplish this. There will be 9 samples available, and you'll choose one kit to create one particular mug rug. Okay, so here I show the setup of the warp hanging from basically a frame loom. And all you need is a frame, i.e. a picture frame. Okay, you don't need to have a tapestry loom. You don't need anything specific because it is a free hanging warp. So there will be no worrying about how many dents per inch in this particular case. I mean, it'll all be handled as we're weaving and by the tension of the weaver. So we don't use the warp separators. We don't use a shedding device or anything like that. So as far as equipment, you can go to Michael's or you can go to the secondhand store, buy a cheap little $1 painting as long as it's at least 8 inches wide. Tear off the old canvas and just use that. So it's very efficient as far as your equipment. You don't really need to worry about having anything fancy. And then here I'm showing, this is where your your measurements and your ends per inch will come in and all that. But what happens is I am going to provide everybody up to this point. I'm going to do this at home for each kit because that'll save some time, because even just doing this first row, this is linen, takes some time. So it's very time consuming. So I will get everybody started. I will get everybody to the correct ends per inch so we can start weaving with color. In the booklet, I believe it's 7 or 8 pages that I give instructions on how to measure your warp, how to mount your warp, how to do this first row and all that kind of stuff. So even though we're not going to do it in class, we're going to review it. We'll talk about S&Z twist, which applies to twining as well as it does to yarns, you know, spinning yarns. So we'll talk about all that, but this will be prepared for you, so it'll save probably about 2 hours. So that'll be nice for the kits. And then this is an example of preparing the yarns for weaving. I use Kumihimo weaving yarn or weaving bobbins because I have found that I can put a lot of yarn onto the bobbins. They're easy to deal with, and then you don't have a million joins. It'll be like joins in tapestry, where you run out of yarn and then you start a new yarn in the same color and what have you. So that this kind of minimizes the joins that you have to deal with on the back. So that's what this kind of is all about. And we use 2 strands as one when we weave, which helps facilitate getting a little bit thicker and of a pattern, but the 2 yarns help lay flat as you're twining, so you don't get the thickness in the actual piece, if that makes sense. So them laying flat creates a flatter piece, but you also get the denseness of the yarn. So that's what that is all about. I have, like I was talking about the teaching thing. I really have found it difficult in classes that I've taken myself to look over the instructor's shoulder to try to, when they demonstrate how to do something. And this, of course, is very specific and it does take demonstration. So I have the videos that start going from left to right, and I show how to do the twist. And then the next, and let everybody practice that. The next video I show is going back the other way and how to do that turn. And the way you twist from left to right is different than the way you twist right from left, because we want the stitches all to lean the same way, because like I said earlier, the pattern comes from the color changes rather than the lean of the stitch. So we want all the stitches going in the same way. So therefore we have to change the way we're twining when we go back the other way. And then after we're going, usually by at least the afternoon of the first day, we'll talk about adding colors, how to change colors, different videos, alternating colors. And then I have miscellaneous points pointers video. And I show these videos as the class is progressing, depending on where everyone's at. Everyone will do this at a different pace. So I try to pace for the average of the fastest people. And then when everyone's working, if someone needs me to go back and show a video again, I can do that. I have no problem. And that's what's really nice about the videos also is I can stop and start and rewind and really get specific about how to do these techniques. Then talking about the patterns, I mentioned there's 9 different patterns and four or five, I'm not sure how it goes, 4 or 5 of the patterns are 2 colors, and then the other number are 3 colors. And there's no difference in the technique between the 2 colors. It's just doing an extra change of color and dealing with an extra yarn and what have you. So we'll talk about all that in class. But this is an example of what it looks like in the booklet that you'll have. I show the piece, which I will have all these pieces there that you can pick up and handle and look at, and we'll talk about what it looks like on the front versus the back and all that kind of stuff. The finishing has cut off on this particular slide, but I do have that in the booklet. That's the 1 page. The 2nd page, I talk about the warping instructions, how to twine. There's the pattern to how to twine the borders. And then I talk about follow the pattern, which is the main body of the pattern. And this is the chart for that particular piece. And I'll talk about how to follow this chart and how to create that piece. Most likely in the 2 days, we might get to definitely not line 10, but somewhere between 1 and 10, hopefully, by the end of the 2nd day. But you will have enough knowledge and enough to continue and finish the piece at home. And then, of course, I'm always available by email after the class, for questions and help. So here is another 2 color pattern. And again, I'll have it all laid out in the booklet, what the patterns are. If you looked at this first one, I didn't state that. I talk about how much yarn you need to create this specific color or pattern with these specific yarns. If you change the yarns from the 8-3 Bokkins linen to something else, your proportions are going to be different. If you use another yarn that is a different weight than the fingering weight, then you're going to get a different proportion. So that you would have to figure out yourself. But if you use similar yarns, you should be able to go home and you'll have all these patterns and you can create 9 pieces or duplicate or whatever and really have a nice set. But it'll definitely have to be on your own because this is time consuming. I'm sorry. So this is another pattern.
Dawn, I'm
Yeah.
so sorry to interject. We do have to make sure we keep moving so the other folks have
Okay.
time
I
to
just
type
have a
there.
few more.
Anything that we really need to make sure
Yeah,
people
I just
see as
wanted to
well?
show real quick. Let me show just the different patterns and then I'm done. Is that okay?
Yeah, you just want to flick through the pictures?
Yeah, I just want to flick through the pictures. Okay. So this is 2 pattern, 2 color, another 2 color, 3 color, 3 color. And I do have these just in these specific colors. And then here's a picture of the video that a close-up of what it would look like. So I'm sorry to go over, but yeah, so that's the class. You'll walk away with a lot of patterns to do on your own, and hopefully you'll think this is as fun as I do.
Yeah, awesome. They look beautiful. Thank you so much. And just as we're transitioning here real quick, I'll highlight that kit you were talking about, you've got the $25 material fee. So folks will get to make some awesome stuff from there. So thank you again. That was Dawn Ahlert talking about Twining with a Twist, 2 and 3 color Taniko, which is the 2-day workshop taking place Thursday and Friday, August 13th and 14th. Up next, we've got Deborah Held, who's going to be talking about garneting for textured effects in spinning and weaving. All right, do we have...
Hi,
There we
I'm
go.
here. Can you? It was a little delayed on my end. Hi, everybody. I'm Debbie Held. I am a little bit about myself. I am a former journalist, and now I turned all of that into writing about textiles. So I write articles for various magazines and sometimes behind the scenes. I've got a new book out over my shoulder, and I teach. I teach spinning because spinning really, and all things spinning, it really saved my life, changed my life, and I feel like it just changed everything for me. And as I started writing, I was lucky enough to be invited to teach. I think it was 2019, and from that point forward, I thought, well, I think I have found my purpose because I just really love sharing the things that I have learned or experimented on um, with students. And I try to have a classroom where everybody's learning and we're learning as much as we can, but where the energy and the spirit is really good. You know, you'll get to talk, and it's I try to keep it somewhat relaxed, but still learning. So I'm having a garneting, what do we call garneting for textured effects in weaving and knitting or crochet or whatever your preferred application may be, because this is about the yarn and it's a full day class. And you might wonder, well, what is garneting? And I'm going to show you some examples in a second, but this is something I think many of us, if we're spinners and we're starting to work with fibers and preparation, that we start to kind of edge into in carding. But garneting itself is when you take scrap textiles material and you card it down or shred it down into respinnable or blendable and respinnable, what do I call it? A mass. So you make it into a form where we can respin it or blend it and respin it. And now I will show you some samples. It is carding, but we're using all kinds of fun materials. Let me show you these. Oops, I have an extra camera here. Whoops, just a second. There we go. Okay, let's start. Here are some of the supplies. I will provide plenty of fiber and plenty of garneting supplies. And what's so cool about this is we will take, like this is silk, we'll take all kinds of fabrics and thrums from spinning, messed up singles from spinning. We've got threads, we've got weaving thrums, all kinds of things. I love to use locks in various different applications. So we'll take tips of those and work them in. I've got different breeds here. We've got mohair. We've got all kinds of things. We've got different wools. So it varies based on, we'll break down some of my weaving. And here are just some of the results that you can get, and that of course I'll bring these and others. But see those little tweed flecks? That is really the origin of all of this. That is the reuse of, well, that's the reuse of wool way back when that we credit to the Scots back in the 1800s or so. So, but moving on there on a more modern take, this is my most updated tweed. These are just all kinds of different locks and scraps that you've seen here and threads. Examples, more tweeding. here's a little, the same yarn put into weaving. And if that is a little too, I don't know, if that is too plain for you, you can take it way far out too. This is another one. These are just, again, scraps. This was unspinnable fiber that I had dyed. Actually, it was fleece. And I took all the, you can see the textures in here. And these are the textures I'm talking about. You can have a very light texture, a sparse texture, or you can have something more forward, like this is a Corriedale fleece with tips of dyed mohair. This is one of my favorites, and this is why I think it's such a special thing to learn. This is a skein of yarn from a class I taught, the same class out in Oregon, and actually Washington. I was in Washington at that point. And I took everybody's scraps when we were cleaning up in the end, and I brought them home, like from each place, from each student. And I then carded them into this yarn. And so it's like a memory for me. And that's something that you too can do once you learn the technique and, you know, start to get your own ideas. Here's a very modest take on it. And here is where I applied it into my weaving. You can see these color bits are in this fatter yarn, this more textured yarn in here. So it really just shows up throughout whatever your preferred method of using your yarn. Okay, I'm coming back. Elizabeth, I'm turning this off if you want to unhighlight me, or I'll try to turn this off. Thank you. Thank you. And I put my notes down. Oh, so I will, again, supply everything you need. Who should take this class? Well, anyone who wants to learn more about carding, of course, because sometimes the lessons are what happens in between the whole syllabus or the curriculum. And anyone who wants to learn how to make use of their own scraps, because as spinners, as weavers, we have a lot of them. So the only requirement really is that you're able to spin, you're competent in spinning a stable singles yarn, and have some idea of what plying is. You can be a beginner spinner, but it's not a class where you learn to spin necessarily. So just have some ability. You can bring an e-spinner, you can bring a wheel, you can bring spindles, whatever your comfort is, that's fine. We can work with that. What else? You'll leave with those supplies, and by the end of class, we'll have plied up a tweed yarn similar to the striped one I think I showed you. Yeah, so similar to that. So we'll have learned how to do that. And like I said, sometimes the best things happen like in between what we're directly learning. And I just taught this class and to hear students saying, I've never made a prettier yarn, it's really meaningful. But more than that, it's meaningful to see that people's minds are open to reusing what was waste material and making their own beautiful yarn from it.
Awesome.
I think that's it. Yeah.
So I would like to ask just a quick question here. So you have the $20 material fee, and
Yep.
like you said, you bring all of the stuff that they need, but they do need to bring the e-spinner. Is there anything else that they need to be aware of bringing themselves versus what's going to come in that included with the material fee?
Thank you, Erica. Yes, thank you. If you have, well, hopefully you'll have your own hand cards or a blending board. You can bring either. I love a blending board, but we'll make this work with your carding supplies. So we can do that. I will have a limited number of extra blending boards, but only a couple. So there's no fee for that, but you would need to get in touch with me. So I'll know to save it for you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you
I
so
think
much
that's
for
it.
talking
Yeah.
more about this class. I love texture
Sure.
So these are going to
Me
be
too.
delicious. So
Me
thank
too.
you again. And
Thank
that was
you.
Deborah/Debbie Hill talking
Yeah,
about
that's me.
gardening for textured effects in spinning and weaving, which is a one-day workshop taking place on Thursday, August 13th. And the last but not least for today, we welcome Kristin Crane, who's going to be talking about creative journaling for weavers.
Thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So thanks so much, Erica and the team at HGA for having me. And I'm so inspired by everyone. Now I want to sign up for everybody's class that I've heard today. So I can tell this is going to be a really exciting Convergence. So I'm teaching creative journaling for weavers on Sunday, August 16th. It's going to be a morning 90-minute seminar. And a little bit about me. I've been weaving for about 25 years. I went to Philadelphia College of Textiles and Science for textile design, started out working in industry, and kind of as my career changed, kind of got more and more into hand weaving. And kind of for as long as I've been weaving, I've been keeping journals and sketchbooks. And I've really learned that this practice really helps me slow down, kind of sharpens my observation skills, and really allows me to make room in my life for inspiration to show up. I feel like it can be really hard to kind of feel creative in the 2 hours you have on this random Saturday. So I feel like if I make time for inspiration to show up, then I have a lot more to work with in my studio. Oops. So these next few slides are just kind of examples of different pages of sketchbooks. And so kind of in my class, I'm going to kind of be focusing on different prompts and exercises you can do to kind of get started, kind of get past sort of the fear of the, white page and just get your wheels turning and just kind of, get into observing different kinds of things, feeling when you're inspired and kind of, honing in on that and what it is and exploring it a little bit. And so I'm going to kind of talk about exercises that are a little bit more, like words-based and writing, and then more that are kind of drawing and color and just color exploration. I think weavers love color and working with color, and it can sometimes be a little intimidating of what colors to put together. So I find, a lot of inspiration from nature and seeing where colors used that I find beautiful and kind of recording that in a journal. I also do a lot of these color palettes, so I'll kind of walk through exercises to kind of teach you how to make little color palettes from beautiful things that you're seeing, and then sort of building out like sort of this inspiration, like reference library for you to be able to tap into when you're working on other projects. And also, sometimes traveling with tiny looms. I love this little pocket loom. I've kind of added that to my kit. And I really love kind of being able to weave on the go or kind of using it as like jumping off points for other projects. And also just kind of talking a lot about how to like use your journals and sketchbooks kind of when you're back home or in your studio, or if you're having a day that you're maybe feeling a little creatively stuck, how you can sort of use these as reference to start using in other projects. And so what you'll learn, I'm going to share a lot of exercises to kind of get started, sort of journaling, also a lot of tips for just slowing down and really kind of tuning in and observing and how to record those observations. I'll talk a lot about my favorite tools, how to kind of build out your own little personal kit that works for you. And then also kind of, I'll share a lot of tips for sort of on the other side, like how you can use your journals as reference when you're designing new weaving projects and kind of building out this little inspiration library of your own. And so who I think should take this class? I think this is great for people who think they can't draw. I've heard a lot of people say they don't keep sketchbooks because they just don't think they're good at drawing, which neither am I. But I feel like it's more about just like slowing down and observing. And I think it's really good for people who want to just, find a way for them to figure out a way to kind of work in time for inspiration. I feel like we have a lot of demands on our attention, and it can sometimes feel self-indulgent to just think, okay, I'm going to go be inspired for the next hour. And so what should you bring? There's no material fees. I think just bring a notebook and a pen. I'm going to share a lot of handouts with kind of my favorite prompts and tools. And also I'll share some of my favorite references and inspiration, and also my kind of favorite toolkit. And I hope to see you in New Orleans. I think it's going to be a great convergence.
Oh, it's going to be amazing. And thank you so much for sharing more about this class. It takes me back to like undergrad and having like, you have to have the sketchbook. So you have all those prompts and you go through everything, and it really is like, it is really inspiring. So I love that you're bringing this up and kind of bringing that back to life.
Thanks.
So thank
Yeah.
you so much for going. All of those little nature weaves are so cute too. So
And
thank
I
you.
think I'm happy it's on a Sunday, because I feel like this might be a nice way to wind down. Everyone's learning all these technical skills. This might be kind of a
Mhm.
fun way to like think about how you're going to put those skills into like your own artwork.
Oh, yes, that is a good point. I love that. Yeah, a nice wind down at the end of the week for sure. Well, thank you so much for highlighting all of the details of this class for us. Again, that was Kristin Crane talking about creative journaling for weavers, which is a 90-minute seminar taking place a Sunday, August 16th. You will be able to find more information on our website, weavespindye.org. You can look under that Convergence tab, head to Sessions and Leaders to find out more information about the classes and register.
And I'm just going to pop in here and mention, if you are having a hard time figuring out your schedule, we have a worksheet for you. It's downloadable off of our website. It's broken down by day, so you can decide what you want to do at which time. So this is the day pre-conference, the day before the conference, when we have a tour about Mardi Gras, and we have a donor event. Small expressions will be open. We'll have some volunteer opportunities. But then we dive into the conference, and on Wednesday, we have every session listed that's on Wednesday. We have all of the extra events, such as the fashion show, opportunities to volunteer, and so forth. Excuse me. But this is broken down by each day. When you get to the Thursday, you'll see that the multi-day workshops are in gray.
So you've got, I'm going to step in here real quick. So you've got your multi-day sessions in gray there, which just kind of shows you when your schedule is already taken up. So you're going to want to look at the time schedules around that. You'll still have access to evening activities and such after the multi-day sessions take place. But remember to make sure there's time in your schedule for the marketplace and getting food and visiting the exhibits. You got to have a little bit of downtime. And we would also love if you guys were able to help us. There's volunteer opportunities throughout the week that you can connect more deeply with folks at the conference. So we will be having these live sessions every weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time until mid-November. And the recordings are going to be available on HGA's YouTube channel. So if you're interested in any of the other classes, please join us, and we look forward to seeing you there.